Hey everybody, let's take a look at some Marathon watches. Marathon is a Canadian company that's been supplying watches for militaries, primarily the Canadian American military, but I think others around the world for quite some time, since the 1970s. And the watch company existed long before that, before it was mostly a military supplier. I know Marathon's been around since the late 30s, I think 39. But the owners actually had a watch manufacturer going back before that, making men's and ladies, dress watches or daily casual wear before they got into mostly military watches. Now, I think most people should take a look at Marathon and consider getting one. I don't think most people should have five, however, but somehow I do. That tends to be the way of things. So I think I can go left to right here, starting with these two right here. These are their field watches. They call them the General Purpose watches, or GP. They're based off of a military standard that I think emerged in the mid-90s. Let's zoom in on it. I've seen watches with this exact same case profile made by a Stocker and Yale. These are actually resin watches, or like a fiber shell, whatever they may call them. And they're really small watches. They come in different forms. Even though they are resin watches, there are variants that are mechanical, hand-wound plastic watches. That might sound strange to a lot of people today, but that wasn't too uncommon in the late 70s, early 80s, back when mechanical watches were the cheap one and the quartz ones were the new ones. There are actually plenty Timexes that you can just buy at a newsstand, hanging up for cheap. Mechanical watches, no jewels. These are quartz, and they're pretty small. They're fitting with that standard. Right now, I'm wearing a Tornek Ravel Stocker and Yale reissue. I'm going to make a video on this awesome little watch. But being 34 millimeter, one of the things that had happened during the 90s was kind of a commoditization of these military watches. A lot of them became plastic, got cheaper. My understanding is that they were issued, the expectation was you would wear it for a little bit, but you'd buy your own, right? That being said, maybe zoom out. In this day and age, most people, watch sizes have gotten bigger. This looks ridiculous to a lot of people. But in the past couple of years, smaller watches have become in vogue. And I've bought a couple, and I am starting to like it. 34 millimeter is a bit small for me. This is a 7.5-inch wrist. But you can picture, for its purpose, that should be just fine. This is supposed to be hard wearing, durable, at least durable enough to survive, I guess, a mission or a deployment. As I said, there were mechanical versions of these watches, but there's two different variations you see here. The one on the left, this is using tritium. I'll turn off the lights at the end, but tritium still gets excited with LED. Tritium is not lume, it just glows continuously. It's radioactive. You can actually see that radioactive symbol on the dial there. So it glows very faintly. It's not nearly as bright as a watch with a lot of lume, but it does continuously glow. And this watch is not just a resin or fiber shell case. Quartz movement, I don't think it has screw down crown now. Simple, very basic, pop back, snap back rather. That's on there tightly. Yeah, you could kind of see that lip there to get under it. I think it shows the standard, MIL PRF 4637G. That's the same standard that this Tornek Ravel, but a different variant of it, abides by. Really cool, fun little watch. They're not as cheap as you'd expect. I think the MSRP on these is over $200. I managed to find mine for significantly less. If you hunt around, you can find that. I think if you want a cheap field watch and you want something a little unique, they're interesting. This strap is actually only 16 millimeter, one of the very few watches I have that has a 16 millimeter strap. It does feel like you're wearing nothing. This watch is just so light. This watch here is the only watch on the table, the only Marathon, that actually does not have tritium lume. This is, they call it Maraglo. I don't know if that's just what they call it or if it really is their own proprietary blend, but this is a lumed watch. At the end, if I remember, I will turn off the light so we could see that. But Maraglo is nice. That tritium, it dies slowly a little bit. After 10, 20 years, it's not visible anymore. So that's not a bad option. Some other big SAR watches, their jumbos, use Maraglo as well. What I think is so special about this watch, this is sapphire. One of the ways to tell, sapphire is very cold. If you put it up to your forehead, you don't mind getting a little smudgy, you tell right away if it's cold. This is actually a metal bezel here, and that's a piece of sapphire that's pressed into it. You can kind of see on the sides. That's a flat piece of sapphire, and the one with the tritium kind of pops out a little bit. I forget the colors, but Army, Marines, I forget which is what, but yeah, they work with branches of the military, and you can actually get these with like insignia on it for different branches of the military. I think that's really cool. As much as I like these watches, I do like steel watches, and while these are the GP, the general purpose quartz, this is the steel version is the, well, this is also a general purpose, but it's the officer version. The way how, yeah, this is a 36 millimeter watch, unlike these, which are 34. And this is the GPM, the general purpose mechanical, but I think it's the officer's variant, and that comes in steel. I love this watch. Now, because it's also tritium, the dial is stacked really high. You know, the hour hand has to be quite a distance over the dial. The minute hand has to be a distance over that to clear that tritium tube, and the seconds hand just the same. So there's a depth to it, and you can kind of see that with how much that case protrudes. And it has a really cool shape to it. It's like this bead blasted metal, and there's really nothing else quite like it. Even though it's 36 and it's a 16 millimeter strap, I wear this quite a bit. I think it's incredibly comfortable. It's very endearing. I chose this variant, the one that has all this writing. If you see, let's zoom in. Marathon, U.S. government, joules. We have the radiation logo. H3 is the chemical formula for tritium, which is radioactive, lightly radioactive. This is a hand-wound movement. It's an ETA movement. It's the only mechanical on the table. I got it because it's the closest thing to Marathon's original watch of this type, which came out in the 80s, I think 86. It was their implementation of the GGW 113 standard, the same watch that Benris and Hamilton made. Really cool watch, and I wanted to get one that had all the trimmings, all the writings on it. Steel watch, screw back, what is it, 3 atmosphere. So that's 30 meter, if I'm not mistaken, not 300. You know, every company has their own degree of rate. I think some companies 3 ATM would beat other companies 10, honestly. But this is a 46374G, same standard as that. There's just many different variations of it. I really like this watch. If you want a mechanical hand-wound watch, field watch, look to Marathon. I think they're, even though it's small, I think it's a great little guy. Anyways, we have 5 watches to go through. We're only 9 minutes in. I don't know how that happens. I made another video not too long ago where I featured this watch, so I'm not going to go into too much depth, but for the longest time, Marathon has made these fiber, or this watch, in resin or in plastic for the past 20 years. They haven't made a steel one since the 90s, and they only brought that back recently, and I'm so glad they did. This watch is in the same style as those 1970 Benris watches. I made a video kind of comparing these and one other watch. But I love this. It's quartz, just like that original just like their 1986 Adinak, they called it, which is the word Canada backwards. This watch is built to a really high standard. It's not just an ETA quartz movement, it's a high torque, high accuracy watch, and it just exudes quality. I absolutely love this watch. Obviously, it has tritium lume or tritium vials, just like the others. When this watch first came back, it was a date model, and the date was kind of noticeable, pretty loud. After a year or so, they came out with a no-date version, and they also made the dial sterile. And I just think it looks so great. And these pair very well with each other. You have a sterile dial and the opposite of sterile. This has a lot of writing. Hand wound and then high precision quartz from the same company. It's on their 3-piece rubber. They call it 3-piece because there's a third piece that's not here. I think the strap is even longer. I actually think this works best on a strap, so I'm going to be playing around with it. But I just think it's built to such a good standard. I really like this clasp. About now, I should say, as nice as these watches are, I think Marathon knows that, and so they charge that appropriately. There are some people who say, why would you spend this much on a quartz watch? These, as I said, are like $200. This is mechanical, like $500 or $600. I think that there's a quartz officer version that's a little cheaper. They just came out with an automatic version of this watch, which is like $300 more-ish. I think these are $600, $700, $800. I always get things when they're on sale. I hunt, I buy things pre-owned when I can, so I'm not the best at memorizing prices. But yeah, I love the way this bezel feels. I love the high-accuracy quartz. I think it's a great watch. But Marathon, they have a name, and they have a history, and they definitely charge for it. I wouldn't say this is a value brand by any means. Let's move on to my latest acquisition. I've been wanting one of these for a very long time. This is part of the SAR lineup, the SAR being search and rescue. Although anyone, fire, police, military, these watches are very, very popular. I'm none of those. I'm a software developer, and yeah, I don't really. I could probably get by with a Casio F91W with what I do, but we don't buy watches because we need them. We have them because we like them. I've wanted this for a really long time. I think it is just such an awesome watch. It is built to a really high standard. It is tough. Now, this is also the quartz version. I got the quartz because the mechanical versions are like $300 more, as I said, and the movement is a more expensive movement, but it's not $300 more. And as I said, Marathon charges a lot. I think this, as it is, this watch on bracelet is normally like $1,500. I'll say that's on the upper end of things. And so I waited till they had on a really good sale, and I picked it up for significantly less than that. But yeah, you have to really love Marathon to get one of these. Let's zoom in on this. Just like the others, Tritium. It's really deeply, that rehot, you see how thick that is for all these bits to clear everything. This is the TSAR, which means Tritium SAR. That's what they call the quartz version. The mechanical version they call the M-SAR, and M is not mechanical. M is medium? Is it? No, it's not medium. Nor is it mechanical. It's neither. It's like, it's not coming to me. It's like, I'll remember it as soon as the video's over. But what's interesting is this is their medium size. It's a 41 millimeter watch, but they call it large. They have a smaller watch, but they don't call it small. They call it medium, and that's pretty small. It's 36 millimeter. I tried it on at a convention, and it's a small watch. It's this side. That's 36 millimeter. And then they have a bigger one, which they call the JSAR, J for jumbo, and that is really big. It's 46 millimeters. So they make 3 sizes, not small, medium, and large, medium, large, and jumbo. And there's quite a difference between them. I think this watch is pretty well made. You can tell, though, when you're moving the bezel and you're not like pressing down on it, it's a little bit of a tinniness to it. That I said, not befitting like a $1,500 watch, let's say. And the clasp is well known to be a bit of a letdown. That's pressed metal here, pressed metal here. In all truth, I'm sure that there are people that have put years on this thing and it holds up. The reality is a clasp like this is probably more than fine for actually getting real work done. But, you know, watch enthusiasts expect even more. I wanted to mention this logo here. This is like a gear icon. I'm pretty sure that comes from this. And that's, to me, like the standout feature. The thing that really makes a Marathon SAR a SAR is that bezel. Really well machined, like teeth on a gear. It just looks so great. This is the Arctic version with the white dial. There's most of them are the black dial. This watch just came out in Arctic. You can find it now. They don't have every color under the sun. They actually just have black and white dial because there has to be a military purpose to this stuff. So the white dial is to make it more readable in like bright situations, desert, search and rescue on the snow. If you've ever gone skiing, you wear like ski goggles. But if you have to look at a really dark watch, it can be hard to read. So this is brighter to kind of match the luminescence of everything else. I think that's all I wanted to go through, other than, yeah, this is a 300-meter watch. This is 100. This is 30. I think these are also 30, or maybe not even rated. Great watches, and I got to recommend them to anyone if you find them at a steal. Because of their history and because of their enthusiasm, they are priced, I think, high for what they are. I'm not saying you're getting a low quality product. I think they're very well made. But if you're a value shopper, Marathon's probably not the brand. But if you're like me and you've seen these, they're just everywhere. Real serious people wear these. And I'm having a lot of fun with this guy. I think it's a great watch. I will say this Tornik Ravel gives it a run for its money. So I'm going to make another video on this guy. To me, they both compare favorably to each other. I like them both. I think that's about all I wanted to mention. Oh, I wanted to mention one other thing. I did read somewhere that the original one of these, the General Purpose, it's part of that military standard, that GGW 113. But they somehow slipped under the radar where they had this case shape, whereas the Hamiltons did not. It always struck me that these two watches have a very similar case shape. This is a CWC G10, and I think there's a reason to that. I think the original ones, they got their cases from the same person, or they got it from CWC or something. I just wanted to get that on camera. I'm a big fan of these military watches, of course. These two brands, camera was trying to focus. These two brands are really interesting. This is the Canadian, kind of the this hemisphere military supplier, and this is the British military supplier, CWC. And I have a bunch of watches from both. Anyways, we've gone on long enough. Hopefully you learned something. If you have any interest in them, keep an eye on them. They do go on sale, and there's actually a ton out there. You could find them pre-owned. Let's just put this on the wrist, and I think that's that. Really cool. Lovely, lovely watch. Looks great on every kind of strap you could imagine. But I think the bracelet is fantastic. That clasp, yeah. All right, thanks very much. I almost forgot to give you the lume shot. Remember, only one of these has lume. You can see the difference. The tritium, especially when you zoom in, you can see it, and it'll glow like that all night. But that's the Maraglo. And the SAR actually has a little bit of lume at the tip of the second hands. Only the TSAR, even though T means tritium, the Quartz TSAR has a little less tritium on it. The mechanical version actually has a smaller little vial of tritium there. So the T in TSAR means slightly less T. All right. Thanks again.